a man cheats on a woman, she more than likely will ask. This is not all the time, but more than like, well, did you love her?
Mm-hmm.
A woman cheats on a man, you didn't respect me.
Right.
Do you hear that?
Yeah.
He can't go back because you didn't respect him. She can go back because you didn't love her.
Mm. Yeah.
But where was the respect?
Too often, Black women are a mere afterthought in conversations around wellness, but not in this space. On this podcast, the dialogue is always centered around women like you. Welcome to the podcast, but more importantly, welcome to the tribe. Be well, sis. All right. So today I am excited to be speaking with Keisha. Keisha is a therapist and we'll be talking about stress. But before we even hop into that, because I know we all experience some levels of stress just because we're human, right? I want to actually just ask Keisha, how is she doing? And I want to check in with her. So how are you doing PMS, which means physically, mentally, and spiritually?
Okay, so thank you for having me on, Cassandra. Answering that question, how am I doing physically? Um, I guess that is where I am mentally, because I believe that the mind is the strongest part of the body. So I am trying to create space in my mind so that I can be physically present today, as well as recognizing spiritually that I am probably more connected than I have been. And so I'm okay
Good.
right now in this moment.
Yeah. And that's what it's about, checking in with how are you right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people just need to check in with themselves as much as possible because when you're aware of yourself, you can be aware of somebody else.
Absolutely agree with you. So I am always curious about how you became a therapist, just because I feel like our generation, like our parents, did not necessarily believe in mental health and seeking help outside of family first and then maybe the church. So how did you end up in this field?
It started off with Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudge. I know that sounds so trivial, but it really worked. It was like an episode where uh, I think Bugs was playing the therapist, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" I was like, I need to figure out what that is. And someone was like, oh, yeah, he's a therapist. I was like, so you paid to be nosy? Wonderful. This is this is great. But moving past that, it really started off with my psychology teacher in high school, Dr. Stimson, and he made psychology fascinating, which then allowed me to just kind of shadow people in the community. And so it transitioned for me, shadow people in the community. I did a bully proofing program with the school and just was able to work with children and really recognizing, okay, there's a lot of gaps in the culture when it comes to help. And so I was like, I want to be able to make a difference. And then, so I've been doing this process since 2004 and I've been everything in mental health that you could be. And the last step was for me to become a therapist so that I could be an active voice for children. But now it's more so adults because I do know that adults are just children who have grown up chronologically, but they're still trapped, whatever the trauma is at the age that it happened.
That is awesome. I'm just so grateful for people who listened to their calling like you, because now I'm seeing such in our community. I'm seeing so many of us are looking into therapy and looking alternative ways of healing, which includes therapy. And I'm just so grateful. And I love that you worked with children. We neglect kids and think because their problems aren't our problems, that they don't have problems. And I just
Yeah,
love that they have a space to work things out, whether it is something just like in school, like bullying, or something even larger and more traumatic. So thank you for what you do.
absolutely. No, thank you. I think kids are the most emotionally in tune, and
Yes.
they are then taught to block those emotions. Um, I believe if we actually listen to kids, they're a lot smarter than we give them credit for,
Yep.
but it's the adults that then teach a message, give a narrative. And so the idea is for us to honor the emotion, honor their emotion, and then be able to process in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I always say that my kids have been my greatest teachers just by observing them. Um, my little one especially, he knows how to take care of himself in terms of like whenever we are getting too loud and it's just too much for him, he will just remove himself. Like he'll go sit in the den by himself and I go check on him like, you okay? He's like, I'm good. It's just too loud out there. I'm just like, good for you for listening to yourself. Like, how can I help? He's like, I'm good, mommy. And when he's ready, he'll come back out. And yeah, he's just been such a good model. And yeah, they know way more than we give them credit for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Sounds like he is very emotionally in tune.
He
Him and my
is.
son would probably get along very well because they're both emotionally attuned males,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
males with the culture, and so being able to produce that, right?
Mhm.
Then we have less aggression that comes out on the other end because I'm able to talk about my emotions and my feelings.
I have 2 boys, so that's something that's really, really important to me as I'm seeing these conversations online about like what women are going through in terms of dealing with the opposite sex, whether it's romantically or just in regular life. I'm just like, oh Lord, how can I make sure that I'm cultivating and nurturing boys who become men who are helpful and not toxic. And
Mhm,
we talk
mhm,
a lot about our feelings here. We all have feelings. It is okay to have feelings.
mhm.
It's not girly. It's not this. It's not, we're not putting labels on things. It is being human. Like
Yeah.
it is okay.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Being human is okay.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit and talk about stress, which is another part of being human. Unfortunately, if you're alive, you're going to encounter some type of stress. So let us talk about how stress manifests itself differently in men versus women, if at all.
When we talk about stress versus men and women, I like to think, I like to start with that men, when they are stressed, they externalize
Mm.
their stress, meaning the focal point is not them,
Yep.
it's the outside space. And so that there's that compartmentalizing that happens for them so that they can stay focused. Whereas women, when we stress, we internalize, we retreat, and then we focus on where did we go wrong, right? So it's we then start to internalize and start to beat ourselves up where men sometimes could become aggressive in
Hmm.
their space, but it's not directed towards themselves, it's directed towards other people. And so we do know that the woman's brain is awesome, but
Yes.
because we have the ability to have more words, we are tend to be more emotional, and emotional does not mean weak, but we are able to express ourselves in a way. But psychologically, because we can, then all of the feelings come with the stress. We're looking at depression,
Yeah.
guilt, defeat. And so that is the difference that I see a lot of times with men and women, is that how we internalize the stresses that are happening.
Yeah, that is so real because I identify in whenever things are going wrong, whenever things get hard, it's not their fault. It's all my fault. Even though some things are completely out of my control, I like
Mhm.
take it in somehow. And I'm working on learning to not necessarily take things on that aren't necessarily mine, A, and B, just trying to be peaceful even though the stress is going to happen. So what are some coping mechanisms?
One, boundaries.
Mm.
Let's just, can we just talk about boundaries?
Yes,
When
please.
we think about boundaries, sometimes they're either rigid and they're porous. There's
Mm,
no healthy balance. And when I say porous, this means it's loose. You like move
mm,
the goalposts to be flexible for
mhm,
those that need it. And then they're rigid when the relationship doesn't match or we're upset. There's
mm.
no balance of like, hey, this is my boundary. And the reason why we have them is because we teach people how to treat us. The boundaries help, People understand what we need, right? If I can't tell you what I need, you can't give me what I want. So first, the coping mechanism was, did you develop boundaries with your stress? Are you saying, yes, 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 I got it, 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 got it? Then you're falling over. And still, when you fall over, sit back up like, I got it. Sis, it's okay not to be a superhero. Clearly communicating the boundaries consistently, because then I'm teaching people how to treat me and what I won't move my goalposts for. The second one is breathe. We don't breathe.
True.
Most of us, because of our clothes and we want to look good, we breathe from our chest so it looks like this. What happens is you're about to hyperventilate. Come back, right? But it's that balloon breath. When I used to teach it to children, it looked like blowing up a balloon. So you're sucking it up, but your belly is expanding. And then when you let it out, it's coming back to your back. So it looks different. The only people that really do it correctly now are those who practice yoga or those who are children. They do it atomically correct because their clothes are not constricting them. So breathe, breathing, yoga, maybe even grounding. What does grounding look like? Maybe going outside, putting your feet to the ground because you're connected to Mother Earth, you're connected to yourself, and you start adapting those senses, right? What can I hear? What can I smell? What can I taste? What can I feel? And when you're able to connect with yourself, then it changes that neural network of being outside of being dysregulated to now I'm presently focused. So can I share like something small, like an intervention for that?
Yeah,
In space work? Okay. So
please.
usually I tell it's like connecting with your senses when I want to do when we're stressed. So it brings you back to focus, right? So the focus is give me 5 things you can see in your room. Boom, 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 boom. 4 things you can hear. Do 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 do. And what happens? The brain has to refocus itself to start doing those things. What are 3 things that I can um, touch? Right? 2 things I can smell, 1 thing that I can taste, right? Doing that then drops down the emotional dysregulation, allows you to refunction and program the brain just so that you can get back into yourself.
It sounds like you're reminding the patient to come back to center, like come back inside
Mhm.
instead of just being focused so externally, and the panic is like amplified. So
Yeah.
that it's a beautiful mechanism just to like remember all the things that are happening within, just that reframe.
Yeah, the
Very
reframing
helpful.
of that, because we do hear a lot of conversations from external factors, and they play in as a narrative like a broken record in our head. So if we can come back and reframe our present, how can I be present today
Mhm.
is really important because our expectations color what we think.
Mhm.
So when I say that is like I would say, hey, find something white in the room. Now find something orange in the room. And they're like, oh, it's there. I says, you might have missed that orange thing because orange is present, but your expectations color everything around you. So if it doesn't look within the color, then you can't imagine it to look anything different. So you're
Mhm.
not present.
It makes me think about what you were talking about before, in terms of boundaries and in terms of giving, 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 because our boundaries are loose. It makes me think about how a lot of us, especially as Black girls and adolescents and Black women, we are taught that our value is in what we can do for those around us, right?
Mm,
Even though maybe they didn't tell us that specifically, but just watching the women around us, all they
mm,
did was give, and they were looked upon as that's a strong woman, that's a good woman, and we
mm,
want to be that too. So I think a lot of us may not even know how to have boundaries
mm.
because of the things that we've seen around
Yeah.
us. So how do we establish boundaries?
Societal norms have taught us that you have to be strong, right? and these gender expectations, and what does the boundary look like when you're supposed to take care of other
Yep.
people, right? But to understand, you can't take care of them if you are not well,
True.
right? And so, what does the boundary look like? Find an find an example, because some of us don't have the definitions around boundaries just because of what we're taught. Find an example that feels comfortable for you. Oh, I've
Mhm.
seen sister such and such demonstrate not talking after 10 o'clock because that is her time, right? Okay, fine. Well, then I get, well, what if my mom calls at 10 o'clock? Do I just say no? No, because we're taught to honor mother and thy father, right? We're taught that. But what you can say is, hey, mom, I love you. And I want to be completely present with you. But at 10 o'clock, I'm not.
Mhm.
Do you have some time and some space for us to talk about it outside of 10 o'clock? Because I want to be present. And letting somebody know that you want to be present makes them feel seen, heard, and validated. So then they are more likely to participate in the boundary if they know that they're going to get you more presently.
Hmm. That's a good point. Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's a really good point. I appreciate you highlighting that because I think a lot of us struggle with articulating our boundaries because we're scared of the pushback that we'll get, but we don't tell the person what's in it for them, you know? And
right,
sometimes we have to do that.
right, it's a reinforcement, right? Like, if you give me this, then this is what it looks like for you. And so it's that buy-in, that partnership of like, hey, we're in this together, we're
Hmm.
on the same side, but I need to be in tune with me before I can be in tune with you, because then I'm no good for you.
Truly, truly. Yeah, that really good point. In terms of, we've been talking about so womanhood, right? And all the
Mhm.
expectations. So how do you address balancing the multiple identities that we have, the multiple roles that we have in our everyday life? And yeah, just being fulfilled and well while juggling all of the different hats.
Oh, so you are speaking to me right now. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but we do have so many roles. And I think understanding the role to yourself is the most important, and balancing like, I matter and I'm enough. And before I go out to the world, before I go out to my children, before I go out to my husband, partner, or wherever, I need to check in with me. And where am I? And so, kind of where you talk about PMS is, where am I physically? Where am I mentally? Where am I spiritually? I know for me, um, this is a season of busyness and a lot of roles. I have a lot of roles and a lot of hats, but I have to continually check in with myself every day. Like, where are you? Just because I'm a therapist does not mean that I don't have feelings. I'm not human and I have tools, but I'm one situation from being on somebody's couch just like anybody else, because life does happen. And so balancing means, to thine own self be true. I say this all the time. Recognizing you, and then forming tasks. Like, can it be delegated? The power of saying no. Oh, I got it, I got it, I got it, but you don't, right? And so, who is your support system? The help can come alongside you and to facilitate help to balance out those roles. Who is that sister, that cousin, that brother, that church member, whoever you need to help you balance out your role? Because it really takes a community of people to help the people, right? So
Yeah.
who do you have in your bucket or your square squad? As Brene Brown says it, who is your square squad that will hold you accountable, that will give you a hard kick in the butt, but let you know, hey, we got you. And so to balance out all of those roles, to know yourself, know your responsibilities, knowing how to delegate, knowing the power of no, and again, boundaries.
I love that. So, if you have somebody who is having a hard time asking for help, what is like one way to like come out of that bubble, that protective bubble, to now be vulnerable to ask for help?
When you're communicating with a person, when asking for help or at anything, the first thing you want to do is observe. It takes like 90 days for a habit to form. So observe the person because it's not easy to ask for help. But if you're observing their consistent behaviors, did they create a safe space for you? Is this a protective space for you? And if so, then that makes it a little bit easier to ask for help because they're consistent. You've watched there. And then when you're asking for help or anything, it's your tone. It's your body language. What am I reading about your message that doesn't allow me to say that, oh, you could help me? Because so much happens in the tone and the body language that we don't, that's why we don't like text messaging. There's no tone, there's no body language if you didn't throw an emoji. So, how do you ask for help? You ask for help by observing the person that you need the help from. Is this person consistent? Can I trust this person? Do we have respectful communication? Is there respect there? Because that's where you formulate a healthy relationship. It's respect, not love, right? So, does this person respect me? Are they accountable? Do they have a win win resolution? Are they honest? Can we support each other? Then, when you observe that in the healthy relationship, it makes it easier to ask for help. And then that person who's observing you says, sis, I know you need some help, but you don't want to ask. And it's okay. Always being able to be like, you know what, I don't know how to ask for help. This is not what I was taught. Because asking for help came with a price.
Truly.
Came with consequences. And I don't want this to be another situation where I ask and there is a cost of our friendship or there is a consequence based upon that I have to live with the duration of this relationship. So it's knowing the person, observing the person, and making that step and that conscious effort. Are you protecting my healthy relationship diagram?
You made a distinction between love and respect. So for those who are listening, okay, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between love and respect?
Yeah, so when I think about respect, it's something that you give like to a coworker. Relationship definitionally, right? Respect is accountability, a safe space, trust, um, judging, like not having a judgmental conversation, win-win resolution, asking, not expecting, right? And it's different from different people with examples, but the basis of a relationship is respect. Like love, the feeling, quote unquote, is based upon actions. If a person respects you, they'll do the actions that bring about the feeling, right? Spiritually, we know that love is patient, love is kind, love is not rude, self seeking. But if you look at that, there's no feelings associated with it. They are all actions that drive out a feeling. Oh, somebody loves me. Well, what do you feel loved? Well, you don't feel love because there's no action to support. So respect is actions, just like love is actions, but most people definitionally think love is a feeling, not an action. Where respect is an action, actionable steps to make me feel love.
Yeah. Ooh, that is good. That is good. And I think a lot of us need to revisit those distinctions and how they intertwine as well.
And if you think about, say, we'll talk about adultery or somebody cheating. A man cheats on a woman, she more than likely will ask, this is not all the time, but more than like, well, did you love her? A woman cheats on a man, you didn't respect me. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
He can't go back because you didn't respect him. She can go back because you didn't love her.
Yeah.
But where was the respect? Because if you respected me, you wouldn't do it.
To begin with, right.
To begin with.
Right. Yep.
So then you need to ask, like, do I really want to be loved? Because I want to be respected. Then if you respect me, then your actions will show that you love me, and then I can have the feeling.
Such good food for thought. Such good food for
Come
thought.
talk to me. Talk to me.
I'm thinking about so many things right now. I think when we talk about relationships falling apart, for women, I think it's what's first causes us to like start to draw away emotionally is because we feel like the respect is gone. And then all the other things will trickle down. They say that when women uncouple, like we retreat, like the decision is made in our head and our hearts way before we actually like physically decide to end the relationship. So my mind's like on a tangent.
Yeah, no, I love the tangent, right? Yeah, like the respect is gone, but it started with the feeling being gone. Like I don't feel loved.
Mm-hmm.
You hurt me. We're disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
But neither one of those resembled, like, if you respected me, could you talk to me that way?
Right.
Do you talk to your coworkers that way? What do you talk to your friends that way? What about that relationship that you hold so important
Mm-hmm.
that you won't cross the line?
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of times when people couple or go through that uncoupling, it's like you stop asking and you start expecting.
Mm-hmm.
What I needed when you first met me is not what I need now.
Yeah.
Recognize my change, recognize my differences. But a lot of times when you hear arguments or the uncoupling part, it's like, you used to be this way. Yeah, I used to be that way. I didn't have kids. I used to be that way. I didn't have a career. I used to be that way because you were all that mattered.
Mm-hmm.
You still matter, but I choose me first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I choose to respect myself first, then love myself. And if I have a healthy relationship with myself, then the boundaries in which I set, the goalposts won't move.
And I think the relationships that stand the test of time, if that's what they want to do, I think both parties always, regardless of how they may feel about one another, because that fluctuates sometimes, they're always going to respect the other person. So they won't speak to them a certain way. They won't do certain things either in front of their backs or behind their backs. That respect is maintained, that even though, like, I may not be feeling it for right now, but like we can work to get back to where we were before.
As long as the respect is not off the table. Because when you met me, you respect me. When you met me, you would do the things that caused the relationship to grow. Now we just forgot. How do we forget? We forget to pay attention.
Yep.
And women, we forget to pay attention to ourselves because we are so used to paying attention to everyone else.
Absolutely.
That you don't even realize that you have become the enabler.
Yep. Absolutely.
You have become the rescuer, but who's there to rescue you because you don't know how to ask for help? And so it's like checking with yourself. Build out boundaries. Tell people how long you have to talk. And it's not because I'm being mean, but anything that costs me my peace is too expensive.
Truly.
So I got to start with me first in order to show up with you.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Well Sis. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a link in the show notes. Be Well Sis is hosted by me, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, and produced by Edit Audio. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, be well, sis.